Pittsburgh Steelers are heading into preseason game 3, looking to fix some issues that they've had here so far this preseason. There's been injuries across the board in several key position groups. And what is the true reality of this football team as we head in for yet the last preseason game of the year? Welcome back to Mike Drop Sports, everybody. I'm Jason. Let's talk about this here on a Tuesday. Everything that we're trying to figure out with this football team in terms of positional groups, battles that are going on all over the place, trying to incorporate the injuries then into those conversations. And you look at guys like Jaylen Warren. Where are the Steelers going to go now that Jaylen Warren is sidelined with a hamstring injury? We know about those hamstring injuries and what they can do throughout the season. They can nag you for the whole year, and it doesn't matter sometimes how much rest you get, how much healing you get. It's just an injury that's going to keep coming back and getting you and keep biting you all year long, especially when you're trying to rush yourself back to the football field. You look at Jaylen Warren, an undrafted rookie free agent, when he stepped into the league, and you wonder, is he going to force the issue in order to get himself back out there to continue to prove himself as he works toward a new contract, perhaps with the Pittsburgh Steelers or perhaps somewhere else? So you look at Jaylen Warren and you say to yourself, are you going to be able to count on him here in at least the early part of the season here in 2024? And I'm not sure what that answer may be. A hamstring could be anywhere from a few weeks, a couple weeks, to months. So that's going to be something we really need to watch. Is Najee Harris going to be able to handle the workload down in, down out without having his running mate in Jaylen Warren? Or where will the Steelers find maybe that production? Dewan Edwards or Jonathan Ward, somebody like that that's on this roster. Maybe Cordell Patterson. Maybe he steps in and is able to fill that void while you have the absence of Jaylen Warren right now. Also, other positional groups that have injuries. You've seen guys like Nate Herbig now go down with that rotator cuff injury, and that could sideline him for the whole year, which probably will. That's probably his season. It's probably over. So you look at young Zach Frazier, the rookie out of WVU, coming in, probably the best center out of that draft in my eyes, a guy that I think can get the job done. But you look at depth. Once again, depth is the key in my eyes to being successful long-term in the NFL throughout the course of a season. You need to have that depth in order to hold down the fort when guys get nicked up, banged up, and injured, man. And that's going to happen. That's just the way the game goes. You see a lot of injuries throughout the course of the season, as did the Steelers last year. So you ask yourself, are they going to be able to overcome some of these injuries? Nate Herbig was a guy that was presumed to be the week 1 starter for the Steelers. However, I don't think he was going to be anyway, because I think Zach Frazier proved himself to be the top dog at the center position. Do the Steelers now keep a guy like Ryan McCullum, or do they turn to perhaps maybe a James Daniels, maybe a Spencer Anderson, perhaps maybe a Mason McCormick, the rookie out of South Dakota State? Do they turn to one of those guys in order to secure that center position in terms of a backup in case something happens to Zach Frazier? We know Zach Frazier had that injury at WVU to end his career, which was a pretty difficult injury. But however, he's been able to come back from that. I don't see no ill effects, no side effects from that horrific injury that he suffered against Baylor back in his last time playing for the WVU Mountaineers. So you look at all those stories and you ask yourself, is this team in trouble? Is it starting to snowball already? Is it starting to build these injuries like we saw last year? Nobody knows. It is what it is. But we're just going to have to continue to press on. And the one thing I do agree about with Mike Tomlin is next man up, next guy up. It is what it is. You just got to play. You got to come in and you got to do what you got to do. And you can't allow a significant drop off every time there's an injury. You have to come in and be able to perform within the scheme and the schematics of the unit. So I think there are some guys on this football team that can do that. I think there's some guys on this team that maybe haven't had the chance yet to prove what they could do in certain positions. So I think they'll be okay. I think there's enough young talent along this offensive line in particular that the Pittsburgh Steelers will be able to fix any type of injury right now, unless it gets out of control. More and more guys continue to fall off. But right now, with who's injured, who's not, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have enough young talent to be able to overcome that issue along the offensive line in terms of depth. I think they're set up right now, and I know there's concerns with Broderick Jones being injured right now with that elbow injury, and perhaps that was why he wasn't able to perform to the highest level against the Buffalo Bills in preseason game 2. Maybe that's why he suffered mightily and wasn't able to perform at the level that we're used to seeing Broderick Jones perform at in his rookie season. So, those things could continue to snowball. Again, yeah. And I think, again, there are some players that could step in. Dan Moore Jr., surprising so far this preseason, has been the highest rated lineman for the Pittsburgh Steelers, a guy in which I have not been high on. I think that Dan Moore Jr. has been a major liability during his time with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I thought last year when you saw guys like Mason Cole, Dan Moore Jr. being wheeled out there, you were worried every single week. So, again, maybe guys grow, maybe guys take that next step. Troy Fautanu's injured. So there's another guy that has the knee, the rookie that just was brought in here in 2024. So you have him injured. You have Troy Fautanu injured. You have Nate Herbig injured. You have Broderick Jones suffering from that elbow injury. Does he miss time? Do the Steelers become smart enough and sit Broderick Jones down right now and allow him to heal up before the season? And this is also imperative, guys, because you can't move on from any other position group if the offensive line isn't productive and healthy and doing what they need to do. You are kind of stuck. It doesn't matter what the quarterback does. It doesn't matter what the running back does. It doesn't matter what the wide receivers do. If your offensive line isn't working and isn't effective, you're not going to be able to move the football. And that is going to be an issue. And that is going to do what? Trickled down to that defense for the Steelers, which we saw what happened last year when they're left out to dry on that football field week in, week out for many, many minutes. The Steelers aren't winning the time of possession battle. You're going to see injuries along that defense. They can't be out there constantly. They can't be out there getting wore down. By week 5 or 6, you're going to see the ill effects of that if the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't able to get some of these offensive issues corrected. We went into 2024, and I thought to myself, the offense could be a bright spot of this football team, regardless of what wide receiver they go out there and perhaps trade for or bring in. I thought that they had enough firepower, but when the offensive line starts to get nicked up and the offensive line starts to play subpar, there's worries there, and there's things that start to pop into your head about the whole football team and how this affects everybody involved, because I'm sure the Steelers are very, very knowledgeable on figuring or knowing that if the offensive line isn't good and has these injuries and isn't able to produce, what that's going to mean for the rest of this football team, and it's going to become a monster issue. So again, we know what's going on along this offensive line, and are there enough young guys to fix it? I think so. I think there's some young talent along this line that can definitely secure it up. So fingers crossed there, guys. We'll see what happens with this offensive line moving forward here into preseason game 3, and we'll see if we start to get anybody back in terms of injury. I don't think you'll see Nate Herbig again for the 2024 season, so I do think Troy Fautanu will make a return. I do think Broderick Jones will eventually become healthy if given the time to heal, and barring anything significant that the Steelers medical team may have missed with his injury, we'll continue to monitor that. But again, I think there's enough young guys that maybe they can figure this out and get this ball rolling and allow this offensive line to start to gel as we move toward the regular season. And that is going to be about where we're at right now, because I don't know how you go further or forward with conversations in terms of quarterback play and things of that nature when they have to be protective first. They have to have a few seconds in order to get these plays off and run the offense correctly to the standards of Arthur Smith and his schematics. So, yeah, it's where we're at. It's where we're at. So I think preseason game 3 is going to be the biggest emphasis on fixing that offensive line in terms of putting players where they need to be and trying to figure out a solution to the issue right now until you get a little bit more healthy. So that's where preseason game 3 sits for me. I do want to see the quarterback play get better. I do want to see the wide receivers get a little bit better here. But again, that's all going to be dependent on that offensive front. And I think I'm really anxious to see about Najee Harris and what he can do without anybody being his Robin to his Batman. So we'll see exactly how that goes too with Najee, because I think that's going to be a very interesting topic moving forward. But the truth of this football team is, guys, the real reality of this football team is what? the offensive line, and that has to be the number one concern here. So everything keeps reverting back to that, and we're not going to be able to get away from that topic, because until that's fixed, it doesn't matter what's going on anywhere else. So that's my 2 cents for here on a Tuesday here on Mike Drop Sports. And again, I appreciate it so very much, but I want to give you the truthful answers, and that is the truthful answer. You can forget about all the other stuff until this offensive line is fixed. We're kind of stuck in the mud, man. And I understand that they're not going out there with crazy schematics right now and presenting their real game plan. I understand that. But the basics and the fundamentals have to be ironed out, and you have to start to see some growth from these guys. It doesn't matter whether they win or lose a preseason game. It does not matter. We just have to see that growth and that offensive line start to be cohesive and start to gain a little bit of ground here before the kickoff of the 2024 season. So preseason game 3, it's going to be interesting. We're going to have to watch a lot of things happen for this Steelers team, and we'll dive into a little bit more of the defensive side of the football, maybe tonight on the live show, or perhaps tomorrow on the daily upload. So don't forget, tonight we'll be live at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here for the show Steel City Live. So don't forget about that. Make sure you share, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. So until tonight, I'm Jason. Peace.